is for you if you are contemplating divorce, in the process of divorce, already filed for divorce, or post-divorce. You will explore the emotional, legal, and financial aspects of divorce from professionals who have guided others through divorce. For more information on this divorce workshop, contact SecondSaturdayWoodlands.com or call 832-375-0900.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and if you're listening on Conroe Radio, 104.5 and 106.1 FM, a special welcome to you today, because this is where you come to. Conroe City Radio is one of the great sources to keep up with the community here in the Conroe, Montgomery County area. So I encourage you, if you're not listening and you live in the area, use that as a way to listen to everything that's going on right here, Lone Star Community Radio. I want to thank you for joining us in today's program again. I think we've got a good show lined up for you. We've got an expert on the floor that's going to talk to us about selling our business. It's a very important time in the life of a business when you go to sell or transfer the business. But before we get there, I want to give you a quick thought, something that popped in my mind, probably in the minds of a lot of you this past week. The world events. It seems like here on Monday morning that the events that are happening in the world are kind of spiraling, some people think out of control, that there's war and all kinds of disruption going on, and big countries, little countries, all kinds of things. And my question to you, and I think it's a valid question for any of us that are in business today particularly, is what is going to happen with your business? What is the effect of world events in general on your business? Now, if you import products or expertise, or it's overseas, and the country that you're buying your products or getting your expertise from is involved in something directly that's upsetting, then obviously you have an impact. But I've got three things generally that just popped in my head, and I was thinking through them. And the first of them is the supply chain. We've experienced, in my opinion, tremendous disruptions in the supply chain. Most of it, they tie back to the COVID over the last 2 or 3 years and the disruption. But I've worked with business people that had a product that they needed, that they sell, they resell, that was coming from overseas, and they're talking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months backlog back when it was as bad as it was. But even today, if I go in to order an automobile, I have to sign a statement that I understand there might be disruption. Now, yes, they have a strike situation, but that was before that. So the disruptions in the supply chain is something I think we need to consider. If you haven't already done so, make sure that you've got your supplies nailed down. That could mean just stocking the shelves a little more, carrying a little more inventory than you normally would, but most importantly, make sure you've got that covered. The second thing, and I think it's a little more mushy. I love that word, mushy. A little less tangible, and that's the buying habits of people. What is the impact on your customer, whether it's a business customer, a consumer? Disruptions that are going on in the world right now through the media that's available to all of us. Lots of folks talking about it, and then there's even more people that are worried about it. So how is that going to impact their buying habits when it comes to your business? Be aware of that, because your sales may slow down. In some cases, they may go up much higher. Certain industries, certain types of products are selling like wildfire. Do you have the inventory? Are you ready to process those sales? Are you ready to ship those? Have you built up the staff and the logistics and processes you need to make it happen? But a lot of us are going to be faced with some kind of slowdown. And the one thing I've learned for sure in the last several years, is the economist. I'm not sure any of them get it right any of the time. So keep an eye on the buying habits. That's something you can do. Keep your finger on the pulse, if you will, of your customers. And last or not least is inflation. I mean, you talk about double speak. Try to read an article on inflation and what it means and what it's going to do, and the fact that 2 years ago it was double digits, and, well, we're doing really well now. It's only single digits. Well, the impact of the double digits added to the single digit? I mean, it just goes on and on. Be sure you have your finger on that. Obviously, if you're in the grocery business, you've seen what prices. It's very obvious. It gets talked about a lot. But there are a lot of people in other industries, other businesses, they haven't seen necessarily dramatic increases, but that doesn't mean you might not see those later down the road. So be aware of what the cost of your supplies and products, and if there's a sense they're moving up, because I'm seeing price increases now, not once a year, but twice, 3 times a year. Maybe not as large if they were once a year, but they keep sort of sneaking it in different ways. So be aware of that so you don't get taken advantage of and you don't turn around and have the right price on your product that'll move it in the market. The Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County and businesses throughout the world come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve their businesses, and to be part of a conversation that hopefully can make a real difference in their business. So you're in the right place, it's the right time, and we're going to talk about everything about business. Before we move on, though, I want to remind you that the show is broadcast live on YouTube and on Facebook. Just go to the Weekly Business Hour page, click on the button, and you can watch as well as listen to the show. So you can join us that way. And most importantly, if during the show or even after the show, if you've got a question, a thought, observation, criticism, as long as it's constructive, please drop me an email. It's real simple. Send it here to the station. It's Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. That's Rick at irlonestar.com. We have a mailbag segment, so if you have a challenge in your own business or a question, send it. I will respond to it either on the show or send you a reply via email. So please communicate with us. We enjoy it. We depend upon it. Well, that moves us to the main reason we're here, and that's to talk to people about what they're doing in business. And today I am very excited. We have an expert, Mr. Jackson Payne, who is the managing partner for Viking's Mergers and Acquisitions, is joining us. And we're going to talk about selling your business and some of the things that you may not have thought about before. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. It's a great topic. We hear the statistics and read them today about the baby boomers. So sales of businesses are up, and from what I read, are going to continue to trend upwards. How are you seeing the market out there? Are there a lot of businesses coming available?
Well, you nailed it. They call it the silver tsunami, right? I don't know the exact number, but there's tons of baby boomers that own small businesses throughout the country. It's a staggering number. So over the next decade, they're all going to need to change hands, some way, shape, or form. So we are seeing a good amount of activity. I would say the vast majority of our clients are 60-year-old men or older. And so there's a steady stream of businesses for sale. But there's more people chasing those deals than there are deals. There's a lot of money on the sidelines, a lot of people looking to get, buy a company, whether that's individuals, whether that's strategic companies, whether that's private equity backed or what have you. So, yeah, it's pretty busy.
Yeah, I would think there is sort of a tsunami you mentioned about that is the aging population or the aging business owners. But I think a lot of things with the stock market, I read a week or two ago that we've made no money in the stock market this year. In other words, the market's back where it was. And I say that with a smile. I know you can make money in a down market, up market. Point is, it's not going anywhere. And fixed income has become the biggest, baddest place to put your money, and you need to be there. So I may want to go buy a business, something I believe that I control. I can see that with individuals, private equity. So I think there are a number of factors that would seem to be at work, all positive as far as selling and exiting your business.
I think that's true. And one thing that you don't hear on, let's say, the news a lot is when you mentioned inflation, but when interest rates are low, asset prices are higher. So the stock market, real estate, it seems to be that a little overinflated. What didn't get overinflated was small business, and let's call that $50 million businesses and below. So I think a lot of the sophisticated buyers, your private equity, they are lowering their minimum investment because they see, wait a minute, that's where we're not overpaying. And there was a run up in valuation for our clients, but it didn't get out of whack. And I think that has opened up a whole new world of buyers to small business that weren't there before. You know, they were going after bigger fish, but now they're slowly going to smaller and smaller companies.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a good time to consider, if you are considered or have considered, to sell your business. Before we go on, though, give us a little bit of your background, your business background, and what led you to involve yourself in the exit selling of businesses.
So yeah, my brother and I got wrapped up with my father in a family business. It wasn't one that he did, when we were kids, but we joined him in that in our late 20s and built that up. We kind of got lucky. Worked out pretty well, and we sold that in 2014. And at that time, I went back to business school because I just fell in love with this process. And so we sold our business and then stayed on through 2015. So 2014, 2015, we're just getting a crash course in this, made every mistake in the book. We did not do representation. So I like to say that was the most expensive education I ever got. As I learned, now I try to go educate our clients. So from 2015 on, I've been in this space in some way, shape, or form. And my brother is our other managing partner here at our Houston office. So we went our separate ways for a while. I brought him back in here in the last year, get the team back together. But between us, we've been in every aspect of M&A, whether that's buy side, whether that's integration, whether that's prepping a business owner to get ready to sell, or actually helping them sell it like we do now. So we have a pretty robust amount of experience knowing what all the players are thinking at any given time in one of these deals.
I think that is a very interesting place to come from. In other words, you in 2014, you had the experience and to live it and breathe it. It's not like you worked in the industry, but in a sense you did, because you were on the other side of the table. That was one of the things I think that helped me most in business. For example, when I would do a lease, well, I had a law background, understood real estate, but I also represented tenants in the family business. It was a tenant, and I understood both sides very well. Yeah. And it always, to me, it was a plus. So you bring a unique quality, if you will, or characteristic to the table. That's fantastic. The market we discussed is real good to sell your business right now. It looks like you say. What is the key factor, though, if you could pick one factor to successfully sell a business? What needs to be present, or what needs to happen to make it a successful sale? Defining successful as getting the highest value, reasonable value for your business, sale goes through, people get paid, and then they go on their way.
Well, that could be a whole sermon series, but I'm gonna break it down into three main things. Number one, you got to have your books and records, pristine. The book's got to be good. You're going to have to pass through a buyer's due diligence. You're going to have to, if you've got, say, $1 million in cash flow or more, it's going to even be more rigorous. They're going to bring in a third party, what they call a quality of earnings report. They're going to look at and make sure that that what we're presenting to them as far as the numbers, that it's accurate and that they know what they're buying. So you've got to be able to get through good quality books and records. And I would say that half the people we meet with are not there, and they need somebody to get them from where they are now to having them done correctly. It doesn't have to be pure GAAP or pure accrual, but it needs to be done correctly. I would suggest getting your personal stuff out of there. I would suggest making sure you have QuickBooks or some other kind of software updated, and somebody that knows accounting at least a little bit doing that data entry. So that's number one. Number two, it needs to be transferable. All right, so if all the knowledge and all the talent and everything is in the business owner's head, when he walks out the door after he sells it, well, nobody's going to buy that. You have to have policies, procedures. You have to have a repeatable process that I can come in there and run your company. You just, show me how to do it. Obviously, there's a transition. There's a handoff. You're not going to sell and leave the next day. But it has to be transferable. Having an organizational chart, having employees. A lot of business owners, they struggle with that at first. If they started this company in their garage, and it's the American dream, they build it up and they did everything. A lot of times they don't like to hand it off. Like, I can do that better. I'll just do it myself. Scale that thing out. Obviously, take some pressure off yourself along the way, but that's what somebody wants to buy. Something that's running itself. And the third one is just being, can you stay on for a year or two after a sale? Now, this splits down to two pathways. If it's a smaller business, and we break it into two categories. We call it business brokerage is $5 million deal or lower. That's usually the person who buys that is usually an individual. They're leaving their corporate job. They're going to liquidate some 401k. Maybe the grandma left them some money, and they're going to go, I'm tired of working for other people. I want to buy my own business. They go get an SBA loan, and they buy that company. That is a little bit different. That's got to be less than a year transition because the SBA guidelines. If it's bigger and you're getting bought by strategic or private equity, then they would like you to stay for a year or two. But across the board, the buyers are looking at risk. Where's my risk? Where can this thing go wrong? And their biggest risk in their mind and their biggest fear as they're doing due diligence is what about when this business owner leaves? And what about all the things that they know and that I don't, that I can't just learn in due diligence? And so having the business owner say, yeah, I'm willing to stay for a year, hand this thing off, gives them the comfort that over that time they can do that. So the key there is being prepared. Like if you're ready, if you wait till you're burnt out and you're ready to go to the lake and go fishing every day, like that's what my grandfather woke up one Monday and said, I'm out, I'm going to go fishing. Well, are you ready to do that transition? Are your books ready? So the key that I like to tell people is get ready. Get ready now. You don't have to sell now, but get ready now. Take the timing back into your hands.
Start prepping. It's very interesting. I would like to continue this a little bit. And ladies and gentlemen, we're to our first break of the day. We're going to take a short commercial break as it is. And when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation around when is the best time to sell your business. And I think you've already touched on it. Don't make it last minute, that's for sure. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back with you.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out ourlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your questions. Get seen on TV, YouTube, and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Support your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
Does volunteering at a nonprofit horse sanctuary sound wonderful? Or are you a veteran or a veteran spouse and think trying a peer group session through a local Horses and Heroes equine program might be worth trying? Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary, located in Grand Central Park by appointment only, is home to a growing number of rescued and donated horses. Visit our website at henryshomehorsesanctuary.org or check out our Facebook at Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary for more information.
Hey y'all, it's DJ Mike from Dance Time in Texas. Join me Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. as I count down the top 10 Texas Red Dirt songs that are packing the dance floor. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour. I'm Rick Schisler, and I'm here today. We're having, I think, a wonderful conversation with Jackson Payne. Jackson is the managing partner for Viking Mergers and Acquisitions. And before we crank up, I want to remind you that, again, if you have any thoughts about the show or you've got a business challenge, a problem in your business, something you're looking at, something you're thinking about, drop me an email. That's rick@irlonestar.com. Send me your emails, rick@irlonestar.com. Well, let's get back to our discussion, Jackson. We were talking about the timing and whatever of how you or when you sell your business. And that's kind of my question. When is the best time to sell a business, generally speaking? I understand sometimes people get into crisis, a health issue, and they have to sell. Well, not the best time to have to sell, but as I run my business, as I build my business, when is the best time for me to sell it?
You know, that's a loaded question because it's so personal. You know, when you build a business, as you know, as you've done this, it's more than just money. It's more than just a business. It becomes your baby. So it's really when you're ready, and nobody can tell you when you're ready besides you and your family. But a couple things I would say to that is, number one, we would say that, well, we hear a lot of people say, you know, I had my banner year in 2019, and now my sales are down or whatever, and so now I want to sell. Well, the time to sell would have been 2019, 2020, like right on, if you're selling high, buying low, right? The problem with that is that's so hard to read the future. So if you can sell after multiple years of growth, that shows strength, right? That's always better. But it's hard to time the market. So what we tell people is, look, the first step in our process, and it's not just, I mean, there's other competitors that do this same thing, but we come in and do a business valuation. And I say it's an evaluation and evaluation. We're examining, are you ready? Is this ready? We talked about the books and records a minute ago. Can I make sense of your financial statements? Can I get a true sense of the cash coming in and out of the company and put a value on it? Are you ready? Are we a good fit? And what's the value? What would we sell it for? What do we think we would sell it for? And when we do that valuation, we're not telling you what you want to hear. We're telling you what we think it would sell for. And we're going to be within 3 or 5 percentage points there. And when we do that, we then sit back down with you and tell you, hey, we think you'd sell for this much. Or, you know what, you're not quite ready to do A, B, and C. But either way, they're going to get an education there on the way this stuff works, because most people have never really talked to someone. They don't really know. Maybe they had a friend that sold, but they've never really sat down and talked to someone, so they get to understand a little bit about the process. We have a really good discussion. We're going to have spent multiple hours. We're going to have seen their business. We're going to have looked under the hood. And then they walk away, and I call it love it or list it. Like, my wife watches these shows, and it's like, you can list it with us. That's great. We can help you sell it. Or now you've been given a little bit of information. Can you take that information and go make some more decisions over the next couple of years while you prepare? And like I said a minute ago, take that timing back. Take control of the timing and not be at the whim. The most heartbreaking call is when somebody calls and they've been diagnosed with something, or their wife's been diagnosed with something, and they got to sell their business because they're forced to. That's what you want to try to avoid, because you're going to exit at some point. So to try to take control of the timing, have it ready for when you wake up and decide now's the time. But give yourself a little window, because it's you know, it doesn't sell overnight, and then you're going to have the transition.
You know, at the break, I mentioned to you one of the things as a Silver Fox advisor, when I first joined the group, gosh, almost 20 years ago, a presentation was being made to small business through the small business group at University of Houston. There's like 100 people in the audience, and we were encouraged to attend, to mix and mingle. So I go in, and one of the Foxes, in fact, one of the founders, stands up on stage. Monty Pendleton, what a businessman, has an unbelievable background. But he hands out a dollar bill to all 100 people. We all get brand new, crisp dollar bills, and I'm sitting there going, what is this? And he says, pull out a pen. And he says, when you start a business, or even if you've been in business, if we're late to the party on this, And he says, I want you to write 3 things on that dollar bill. When do you want to sell your business? How much money do you hope to walk away with? Do you hope to get for it? And then to whom? Meaning, I'm going to transfer it to my family. I'm going to sell it to a strategic buyer, or as you mentioned, to an individual buyer. Whatever your vision that you have. And it was, the reason for the dollar was you frame it and put it over like my first dollar sale, but as a general reminder over the next 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 plus years that I'm working towards these goals. And when I make major decisions, am I, just a consideration on major decisions, am I still on point to get where I need to go? I thought it was one of the best pieces of advice that I'd ever heard.
I like
and
that.
One of the things that I do now when if I'm talking to someone and they want to engage me and we're getting to know each other, and I will ask them, it's amazing how many people sit there and squirm, and if they can answer those questions, then I typically will not take them as a client because I don't feel like I'm going to be able to help them, whether it's for a year or 5 years or 10 years, because they're not sure where they're going. And I get that. I mean, I'm not being critical, but I want to help them get somewhere.
Sure.
So it's very interesting. It's a very important point, almost what they call an inflection point, to make those kind of decisions. It's an amazing thing. Well, let me ask you this. People want to sell their business. They're going to sell their business. What is the single biggest mistake that they make in your experience?
I would say the biggest one, which we already talked about, is not having any plan,
Right.
not being ready. But once they start talking to us, I would say the biggest mistake is we talk to a lot of guys that end up wanting to do it themselves. They get an unsolicited offer. And this is typically your bigger companies. They've got maybe a couple million of EBITDA, nice businesses, nice staff, and they've been around for 20 years. And some private equity group somewhere or some strategic buyer that's in their space calls them up, says, hey, Rick, you ever thought about selling? And they've never considered that somebody may want to buy them. They don't know what the market is. They don't know anything about it. They just got a buyer. And then they talk to us and they decide, because they have to pay us a fee, that they want to, I can just save that fee and I can do it myself. Well, remember when you asked me my background, I said the most expensive education I ever got, right? Essentially, we didn't know what we were doing and we were dealing with people that do. And you usually lose that discussion. So a lot of people try to do it. We're talking about confident people. They built a business. They've been very successful. And so there's a temptation with a lot of them to, I can do this myself. They're very do-it-yourselfer people. And so we've run across that a lot, where they say, you know what, we're going to do this ourselves. Our fee is not an expense. It's an investment. And why would you sell to one buyer? Did you marry the first girl you dated? Maybe you did. But you should see what the market holds. You should see what you could get for it. You should run through. There's a long way from somebody calling you on the phone, and even an LOI and the closing table, and all the things you need in between. And so it's very complex. It's way more complex than a piece of real estate. You should bring in a professional, whether that's Viking or whether that's somebody else. You should not do this yourself. I would say that's the biggest mistake.
Well, I'm listening to you and I'm smiling over here, because to me it's somewhat akin to getting a small business to engage a good business attorney, to engage a good accounting firm or individual CPA, whatever you want to, and even engage the right kind of insurance representation to buy the right insurance, and because it's going to pay off. And it's something that I've probably told the story too many times, but one of the things I learned from my father was that he found representation in all 3 of those areas, and he would meet with those people on a regular basis just to talk about the business and where the business was going, not to solve a problem or not to talk about tax returns or anything, but individually meet with them over lunch or something to give him input of where the business. And over the years, he developed wonderful relationships and could count on these people. And he got great service, got great advice, I mean, unequivocally. And this is the same thing, because I'm doing something typically, a one-off, one time.
Right.
And a lot of times it's a big event in my life, bigger than buying that house and signing a mortgage in many cases. And the idea that I'm not going to find good representation, but I'm smiling because the resistance I've had over the years from clients just to find good representation, legal, accounting, insurance, and be willing, particularly with the legal and accounting, to pay, it's just amazing to me. And those are the kind of clients I'm not sure I can help overall.
Right.
And I get it. We're entrepreneurs. We solve problems, right? We can do it. And it's very interesting. Quick funny story that's a parallel. One of the businesses we had that I was involved in, started with a partner from scratch. We got sued, and we ended up in the Supreme Court of the United States.
Oh, wow.
On a patent lawsuit. And I'm a lawyer by training. I'd never really practiced, but I used it every day in business. It's a process. You learn how to think and analyze problems in a different way. But here I am sitting in the Supreme Court, and I'm sitting there and say, gosh, I don't need that attorney to present my case. I can present this case. What a thing. You had 8 justices. One couldn't make it because we were in a blizzard condition. It's a great story. But anyway, you get that pang like, God, I wish I was up there once in a lifetime. I missed my opportunity. Of course, when you calm down, you realize no way, no how, right?
Yeah.
And no training, no background. But I can see as an entrepreneur, we think we can do it. And it's got to be, you've got a tough situation that you walk into probably each and every time to varying degrees of working with people, representing themselves. I think that's interesting. How do you actually market a business once you've entered into an arrangement with a business and you've got in and done your due diligence and helped them put together their package, if you will? Mm-hmm. How do you actually market those businesses in today's world?
It depends a little bit on the type of business, but there's a couple different approaches. First of all, goes on our website. And our website, we've been around 27 years, and we've sold pushing 1,000 companies over that time. So we've developed a pretty robust network of buyers that are set to get alerts or on the lookout. So we'll put it on our website. We'll put it in common platforms like Biz Buy Sell is one, where a lot of buyers are on. Buyers from people like me and you to people with $100 million private equity funds. So we'll put it there, and every time we list a company, we get a number of new, unique buyers into our system. And we average about 37 buyer inquiries per listing. So that's the least of our concerns when I'm looking at a company. We kind of focus, is this a good company? Because if it's a good company, we'll bring eyeballs to it. If it's a bigger company, if it's a niche company, we'll go out and do active, we'll call people. I can research and call and find out who's buying certain kinds of companies. And a lot of times our clients will tell us, hey, you should talk to Joe at ABC company. That they bought up my competitor, or they bought out a friend of mine, or whatever. So we'll just do some outreach as well. So we kind of mix those three together. The smaller companies, our website and Biz Buy Sell will probably drive the day.
It's interesting. So it's not one shoe fits all. You have to tailor it based on the company. And again, with the effort to maximize the sale price or the overall. So I think that's important for people to understand. It's not like putting a for sale sign in front of your house.
And that's a good point. That leads me into the confidentiality of it, right? We can't just put a sign out in front of your company that says for sale. Your employees, your customers, your vendors, they don't need to know that right now. So we have to be confidential. When we put it out on our website, it doesn't say the company name. A lot of times it's very broad with the geography because it might give you away. So we're going to be very confidential with what we do. Usually we meet with business owners. A lot of times it's after the employees are gone because they don't need to have, hey, who are these people coming in? It just depends on what's going on at their place. But we're very cognizant of that. It's very important to us. And so no buyer is going to know who this company is until we've screened the buyer. We've talked to them. We've seen, we know who they are. We know their background. Can they buy this company? Meaning, do they have the money and do they have the skill set to make it successful? We've screened them. We're screening the buyer more than they're screening us for who is this company. And so that's one of the biggest questions we get when we meet with somebody is, hey, I don't want anybody to know. And so that's a good point that you brought up, because that's very, very important.
I'll tell you one thing I've learned today, and it's the importance of the question. It's not when to sell. That's a question, a valid question, an issue. But is your company ready to sell? Is something that kind of, to me, it's not out front, and it should be, because I've even had that situation where a company really wasn't at the best place for some good reasons. Market had just, sales were literally, and I'm not exaggerating when I point this up 60 or 70 degrees, their sales had just taken off, and they were recession type business where they did really well in recessions, and we had just gone into one, and you knew very well it wasn't going to end tomorrow or next week or even next year. And so my encouragement, which they took my advice, take 3 years and go down the checklist, get everything right, and I said the value of business if you want to stay, because they were at retirement age. They had good reasons to want to retire and spend time with family. I said, you'll get 5-10 times more, whatever the number is, but it's definitely going to be a lot more based on this. It was 8 or 9 months already had gone into it, and it was just climbing. So, but is your business ready to sell? Give us a short checklist on that, kind of a recap. What are some key factors that I need to look at to determine, is my business ready to sell?
Books and records, number 1, 2, and 3. How's your QuickBooks? Is it done right? And when I say done right, I don't mean are you lying. What I mean is, are you putting the things into the right categories? Can we actually look at and examine the books and see sales on a monthly basis? Can we, if you have different types of sales, let's say different products or different lines of business, can we break those down, and can we examine each one on its own? Are you putting the expenses in at the right level in the right spot? Or the gross profit is important for buyers. A lot of times we see books that one year they show 42% gross profit, one year 32, one year 49, and I don't really know what the true gross profit is of this company and how are they doing it. There could be a lot of reasons why, but we have, examining your books and records. A lot of business owners are doing that themselves as well, or family members, and it's okay, but somebody with no training. So sometimes that works out well, sometimes it doesn't, but how are the books and records? And number 2, and this is a little bit of a function of size, but is it transferable? If I am the buyer and I am looking at a company, and I look at the business owner, they're going to leave in a certain amount of time after this transaction. What do I have to replace? And what's the cost of that? And we see a lot of husband-wife teams. That gets a little bit hard. Okay, what are we replacing? How do we do this? Or when there's 2 partners. But that's one of the biggest things that we're going to be looking at right away is what are we replacing them with? What is their job description? How much do they do? And what's the answer for the buyer? And we have to do that in evaluation, because we have to do what's called normalize the earnings. Like what's this going to be to the buyer?
Yeah.
And then the
cost.
Right, the cost of that. And then the other part of that is, if your personal expenses that you're running through there, we all do it, right? I mean, I hope the IRS isn't listening, but I know that you're running things through the business. That's one of the perks of being a small business owner. But understand that the biggest driver of your value is your cash flow. So if you are spending money or running personal stuff through the business, you are decreasing the cash flow, decreasing the valuation, and I can't add everything back. There's a limit there. Add backs is an industry term. We can do some of that if it's documented, but in a perfect world, you've got a clean set of books, clean set of tax returns for at least, preferably 3 years, but at least 1 or 2 years, so that we can show a buyer this is what you're getting and be confident that that is the right cash flow number.
You know, and you make a good point. It's not rocket science. It's just taking that checklist and making sure that you, as a potential seller of business, that you have met those things. My old rule of thumb was that I was taught a lot of businesses need several years. A lot of businesses' recommendation used to be, and maybe it's not true anymore, that you have a CPA do a review of your annual financials. In other words, pay the money out to have a review type statement, not a full audit.
Right.
But the validity of the 3 years or more of those statements to a potential buyer. Is that a necessity still?
I wouldn't say necessity. It's helpful, but I would say the vast majority of deals we do not have that. So it's okay. But, you know, I have a financial background. We have people on our team that have a financial background. So when we see the financials, you know, in that valuation process, we are looking at it through the eyes of a bank and through the eyes of a buyer, because those will be two important parties of this transaction. And we're trying to find all the questions and all the problems that they're going to find out ahead of time. And if we can't answer them or wrap our arms around them, or the answer is I don't know, then you're probably not ready.
Yeah. In a sense, you perform a simple audit in that you're looking for those key factors. Yeah, that's very important for people, because the worst thing I think that happens out of all of this, potentially, assuming there's not an emergency situation, is that people go to sell and then they don't sell something. They don't find a buyer. They don't have certain things that they need, and so they lose. And boy, you talk about a rejection to an individual, to the whole business can suffer. And that's why you see some people just, well, you and I were talking before we went on the air, a lot of real small businesses, particularly, they just lock the door and go home. They're done. But when you don't sell your business, when you've gone through all of this, and it's because you've left something off the list or haven't met the standard, that's a horrible place to be.
It is. We go back to the planning, right? So when we come in and we do the valuation, we don't charge for that. And one of the things that we're trying to do is do our job better. So we sell about 90% of our listings. So if we say we'll work with you, we feel pretty good that company is going to sell. But there are plenty of people that we come back to do the valuation presentation and we tell them, we can't sell your business. It's hard to say to people, but sometimes the truth is the best thing to hear, right? And so if that's the case, then do you have a financial advisor? Yes. You need to spit as much money to them as possible, because that's your retirement, right? And then here are your other options. So if they talk with us, they're at least going to get that education as well, right? So you don't want to be broadsided with that later. What are my options if I can't sell it?
No, you make a great point. I can't thank you enough, Jackson. It's been fun today. You've provided, I think, our listeners and myself with some great information, some great ideas to think through, because selling your business is a huge event, and it's not something, as we agree, that you just wake up one morning and you say, hey, I want to go fishing, like your grandfather, if, in fact, you really want to maximize the return you get on your business. You've got to invest some time, effort, and some money in the right kind of advisors. If people want to reach out to you and get some more information or perhaps engage your firm, what's the best way for them to do that?
If they go to our website, vikingmergers.com, there's a little form they can fill out, and if they just put on there, we have 12 offices, but if they put in there that they're in Texas, it'll come to us, and we can just have a conversation.
There you go. No cost conversation.
No cost. No, we are a success fee only.
There you go. Well, thank you again for joining us today, and thank you for talking about that important event in every business's life is when it's sold. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break, but before we do, coming up in the second half of the show is I'm going to deliver my tip of the week, one that I've had on hold for a while, how companies should vet their nonprofit partners. As you know, if you're a regular listener, I believe every business needs to connect with one or more nonprofits and get their employees involved if possible. It's a great way to work within your community and get noticed, to stand out. So I want to talk to you. There's some wonderful information out there on how you should vet and make sure you've got the right nonprofit as your partner. So I encourage you, stay with us. And remember, a video podcast of today's program will be posted on Wednesday this week. It's on the website here at the station, irlonestar.com. Go to the show tab, daytime shows, click on the Weekly Business Hour, and you'll be able to look at what we talked today as well as listen. And so we encourage you, share it with others. We always like new listeners. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back with you.
Does your company have needs that can be met by an employee who is dependable, hardworking, enthusiastic, motivated, cooperative, respectful, and punctual? Conroe Independent School District Special Education Department can meet your needs by connecting you with potential employees that have been preparing for a lifetime of employment. We have numerous individuals seeking paid and unpaid work experiences. If your company is interested in seeing how we can meet your business needs, call Conroe ISD Special Education Department to find the best employees for you at 936-709-7671.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show. With monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Health Center Southeast Texas is a federally qualified health center. We accept Medicare, Medicaid, and most major private insurances. For our self-pay patients, we have a sliding scale discount program available. Our health centers have qualified providers.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour. I'm Rick Schisler. I'm a Silver Fox, the founder of OneBestConsult.com. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. I think our conversation with Jackson was very enlightening. We've had several guests on the show. All of them have been outstanding, talking about how to exit or when it comes time to sell your business. And this was somewhat of a new perspective. So I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it. And again, a quick reminder is that a copy of today's show, if you will be on podcast, videocast. It'll be available shortly on YouTube, Facebook. Just go to the Weekly Business Hour page. In fact, if you want to rewatch the conversation that we just had with Jackson Payne, you can do so right now. So again, thank you, and please share that with other business people you think that might be of benefit. Also want to mention to you that we need to reach out and we're looking for sponsors. Sponsors of this program, sponsors of the station. Lone Star Community Radio is a nonprofit. It's here to provide perspectives and communication for our community, all aspects, all corners of our community. It's got a complete listing of shows that are produced by people like you in different areas, in different formats. Just go to irlonestar.com, the website for Lone Star Community Radio, to learn more about how there's a potential for you to put on a show or be a sponsor for this show and other shows on Lone Star Community Radio. Well, let's talk about nonprofits. Again, it's been a while since I believe I've talked about the subject, but I've always believed that it is important for every business, whether you're a solo practitioner, you're the only employee, or whether you have a handful of employees or you've got hundreds of employees, to connect your business with a nonprofit. And that can take on many forms, but one of the real effective ways is if you have the heart for it, if you can develop the passion, is to partner with the nonprofit. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about nonprofits that you regularly work with, perhaps sponsor their events. Again, depending on your business, you may hold an event at your business for them. You are absolutely involved with that nonprofit. There's information potentially about that nonprofit as part of your advertising. So you're really partnering with these people. And it's important, like anything, whether you're buying a new product or putting together a new service, doing business with a new customer, is to vet that individual or company. And in this case, to vet, which is somewhat different than the others, such as a new customer, is to vet the nonprofit like you would any partner that you might bring into your business. And a lot of folks will go and work with a nonprofit that's close to their heart, a nonprofit that they've supported in the past by a contribution, more particularly, and perhaps even volunteered. But you don't want to take anything for granted, particularly if you decide to partner with those nonprofits. And again, if you primarily work, particularly within the local market, in a community that your family lives in, and that's where your business does most of its business, then this can be a real benefit to you and your business. There's several things I want to point out to you, kind of a short checklist that these are questions or issues I would suggest you address when connecting yourself to a nonprofit. Analyze their funding. And again, if you've been on their board and you know the inside story, you can skip over this. But does their funding, in other words, the programming, their mission, does it absolutely do good for the people or the interest that they're trying to reach? Now, that may sound like a funny question, but in many instances, you are donating. I'm not talking about fraud. I'm not talking about something being phony, but nonprofits, just like for-profit businesses, some of them just can't deliver the goods, so to speak. They have all the best intentions and they work hard, but is their funding bringing, and the key word here is measurable, positive effect to the people, for an example, they're trying to serve? That's easy to check out today. Many large donors actually ask for statistics, and there are ways for you to find out those statistics. A lot of nonprofits will report those. Go to their webpage, go to their annual report. You can find this information out fairly easy. What does the nonprofit do to improve the lives of people in your community? If you're supporting a community nonprofit, you need to see that they're improving the lives of people in your community. Thirdly, does its leadership consult with community leaders to ensure their work is helpful? Do they bring people into their board from all walks of life, so to speak? Or are they just centered on large corporations? It's very important that you understand who you're getting ready to partner with, right? We've talked about that, but make sure that they are really doing good and reaching the people in your community. How does the nonprofit measure the results? Are they measuring the results? In other words, we're spending $25 per child to provide after-school programming. Is that what they're doing? Is that working? $25 sounds like quite a bargain to me. They must be doing something right. Next question, how many kids do they reach on a daily basis? Understand these kinds of economics in the nonprofit that you're working with. Does the nonprofit have powerful and focused testimonials available? It should be on their website, should be on other marketing material. Even talk to somebody they serve and see if they're really bringing to bear what they say they bring to bear, the nonprofit is, so that you know that what they're doing is really important and it is helpful. And last but not least, if your company supports this organization, will it publicly defend you if something happened? In other words, will they truly act as a partner and try to do what is right by your company in case something happens and there's some bad publicity for your company? Very important question, one that I suspect many people will not want to ask. But please understand, by asking the tough questions of nonprofits, you can help yourself, not only by getting a better partner, but in reality, if you really work at it, you can help the nonprofit be better than it would have been if no one had asked the questions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the close of today's show. Again, thank you for joining us. And again, look for a video podcast of today's show on the Weekly Business Hour page of irlonestar.com, onebestconsult.com, and Facebook and YouTube and other social media sites. The Weekly Business Hour. And until next week, stay engaged and always, always keep your focus on what counts in your business. Thanks.